Welcome to Simply Verified Beef, the podcast. I'm Bree Patterson, your co-host from the West Coast of BC. I am the VBP Plus coordinator in BC, and my other co-host is
Amy Higgins, and I am on the alternative coast, in New Brunswick, as the New Brunswick and Nova Scotia VBP Plus coordinator.
The Simply Verified Beef podcast is going to cover all topics related to VBP Plus. So for those unfamiliar with VBP Plus, it's a 4-pillar voluntary program across Canada. We include all producers if you are feedlot or cow-calf. And in the 4 pillars, we discuss animal welfare, on-farm food safety, biosecurity, and environmental stewardship. So these topics throughout our podcasting will fall under one of those 4 pillars or have some sort of overlap in all 4 of them.
And so you'll notice that we're co-hosts. You may see both of us in a podcast episode. You may see one of the 2 of us. I'd like to welcome our guests to this episode of Simply Verified Beef. And the topic today is simply the marketing. So we've got a couple guests with us from Alberta. So we have Melissa Downing and Jason Danard. I will throw the mic over to them so that you get a chance to hear from everyone, and they're going to just introduce themselves. Melissa, would you like to begin?
Sure. Thanks, Amy. And thanks for the opportunity to join you today. So I'm Melissa Downing. I am currently the Verified Beef Production Plus Coordinator for Alberta, and I've been in that role for 5 years now. And I'm also a cow-calf producer in East Central Alberta.
Jason Danard with Team Auction Sales, owner-operator of Team Auction Sales. We have a weekly feeder cattle sale every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy days, especially this time of year. I guess we'll just dive right into things. The first topic we wanted to chat about was considering the past sort of roller coaster of a year between COVID-19 and the drought that you guys are experiencing out there. What are some of the things that you've seen the industry adjust and adapt to? Like, Jason, do you have any comments or thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a complicated topic today. How much time do you have? I think COVID and this drought, I think, have accelerated a lot of things that were happening anyway. We are definitely seeing amongst the Canadian cow-calf producer a shift to, I would describe as more technical marketing. We've been running an internet auction platform for over 20 years now, and we're seeing more and more producers utilize the platform because of their exposure, because of their reach. And I think the world has moved a little bit more so online, I think, with COVID. So obviously a terrible thing to happen, but it's definitely accelerated our business in terms of the volume that we're seeing go through our online trading platform. And the drought this year has also accelerated some things. I think we've seen cow-calf producers in Canada overall definitely shift to earlier marketing of their calves. I think that the Canadian cow-calf producer today is far more aware of their marketing options than in past years. And their options are growing as well. You don't have to sell your calves on October 30th. You can deliver your calves October 30th, but you don't need to sell them on October 30th. And utilizing platforms like Team, producers can market their calves in March, July, August, whenever they like the market. So rather than time marketing with production, you can time your marketing with good marketing. I think that the drought kind of had producers thinking about it, certainly more so in past years. What am I going to do? Is this calf market going to fall apart? Are we going to see a flood of calves come to market? So I think it really got people thinking. We've been pricing calves for well over 2 months now in numbers that we've never seen before, far exceeding previous years. And we were seeing a growth in those numbers in terms of forward selling calves, but this year certainly more so than ever. We haven't had a Friday feeder cattle sale any less than 6,000 head in terms of volume since the spring. Last week we had over 10,000 head on offer. So we definitely are seeing producers exercise their ability to price calves ahead of delivering them. And I do think this year, because of the drought, they are going to deliver slightly earlier than usual, not a lot earlier, but a little bit earlier than usual. And we are as well, I should add, we're seeing a lot of producers that might have carried them backgrounded the calves into the new year, selling them now just because of the shortage of feed, or I should say selling them for earlier delivery, pricing them now. So I guess that's a long-winded answer, but in short, we're seeing a massive shift in the way that most cow-calf producers, or a lot of cow-calf producers in Canada, are handling their marketing. And again, I think they're making better decisions. They have more options, and they're certainly exercising those options. And it's been good for our business, but I think it's also been good for industry as a whole.
Thanks, Jason. And I guess I should add that at time of recording, it's not exactly fluid with the time of release. So some of the data points that Jason might be referring to may be a little bit outdated by the time we get to publish this. But again, I think the trends that Jason's describing are relevant either way, and the next month or so won't adjust or adapt too much of that. So I'll throw it over to Melissa. Do you have any thoughts on the kind of last year and how things have been adjusted and adapted?
Yeah, I would agree with Jason's comments. Obviously, he's got the expertise in that area, but just seeing trends towards online sales of cattle, and we do see a lot of people purchasing cattle online as well since COVID, and so that is something that I think we've seen just an overall increased adoption in technology and more familiarity with those ways to do business online and ways to access information online has really been increased or enhanced through the period of COVID. So it does help expose a lot of people to a lot of different things. So that, I think, has helped the industry just to have more access to information and be more familiar attending webinars or participating in online meetings and things like that. And I think, it accelerated our uptake of information and technology usage by probably a decade within 3 months, just the way that we were forced to use it, forced to get familiar with it. And I think that's a really positive thing for our industry in general. I would say I think there's been some trending towards producers doing direct marketing. So maybe if they're finishing some of their own cattle and just, hand picking a few animals and direct selling that beef to consumers, whether it's through farmers markets or marketing through a website or a Facebook page or something that they might try to get some direct sales going. And, not always on a huge scale, but there are some really neat initiatives in the industry and some different platforms I've seen used for selling beef. And so it is neat to see some of that. I feel like in any industry, and especially in agriculture, I think those tough times or stressors like COVID and drought can really, really increase our innovation, and we're really driven to make sure we can make as much profit as we can or maintain our sales or maintain our way of life by finding ways to be more efficient. So that's something that I think those stressful times can really increase our adoption of innovation and technology, and that can be a good thing long term.
Yeah, that's very fair, Melissa. And I guess from a maritime perspective, so I'm on the opposite side of the country where we're not quite as in bad a condition from a dryness perspective, but COVID and the whole buy local, or folks really got an impression on how fragile the food system is a little bit. So you went from a couple of years ago, and our farm direct markets a little bit of beef and cull cows and stuff as well. So it went from people only wanting sort of those 20 pound packs or sort of barbecue packs or something that didn't take up a whole lot of freezer space, because sort of the era of the deep freeze was on the out, and then COVID sort of hit, and there was a lot more. I know that there was a run on deep freezes that there was 4 or 5 months wait for people to get a deep freeze in on order. So we had people reaching out asking, and we couldn't probably fill the demand just within ourselves and had to direct them to other producers. But it was definitely eye-opening from a consumer perspective, not being able to maybe access all of the things that they would expect to access from a food systems perspective.
Yeah, and I think that actually is a huge opportunity for us in the industry to really connect the dots for people as to where their food comes from, because the general, average consumer is, just by nature become very removed from food production on a primary agriculture scale. And so it's a really good opportunity for us to tell our story to build that relationship and help them feel like they understand the food production process.
So I know that from a calf marketing perspective, by the time this public will be already kind of in the weeds, but as people are executing on their marketing plans for this year, I know that you yourself, Melissa and Jason, have been working together on sort of some specialized VBP Plus sales. And what do you see as the benefits of those value-added programs such as VBP, CRSB, or any other branded programs, but those are the ones that are near and dear to our heart. So Jason, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I think utilizing the internet and the internet trading platforms, I think it really gives us an opportunity to sell cattle with identity by comparison to more traditional methods of marketing. And the VBP Plus program is a really good example of that. Melissa and I have been working together for, well, I guess it's been a few years now, a couple of years anyway. I don't want to say it's surprising to me, but I have noticed a large percentage of the cattle that we're currently selling on team are coming from VBP Plus certified operations, which to me, it demonstrates good management practices. And again, utilizing a platform like Team, you have an opportunity to tell the world what you're doing. We are a part of this program. We are proud to be a part of this program. We are doing things right, and the buyers are certainly responding to that. I think if you measured, and I don't know what the numbers would be, but if you took commodity cattle versus cattle from VBP Plus operations, you'd find there's definitely a premium. And I think a lot of that isn't just because of being on the program, but certainly some of it is. I think simply being certified to me demonstrates good management practices, and that means a lot. To me, it just tells me that these people they care, first of all, about what they're doing, but not only that, they're doing it right. We have an opportunity using our platform, and we do, I guess by the time this runs, we will have already run the sale, but we do at the end of September have team feeder cattle sale featuring cattle from VBP Plus operations across Western Canada. Perhaps by the time this runs, you can quantify what the premium is for those producers, and I think you'll like what you see if you're involved with the program.
Yeah, and we can definitely link to those results in the show notes.
The industry is a lot of people that are doing the right thing. And because, as I mentioned before, with consumers, they want to know what's going on. They want more information. I think the whole industry is recognizing that. And the third-party certification, I feel, is really where we add value for that system. And it's value to the consumers, but as we mentioned, it's also value to those feeders. If there are feedlots that are looking to purchase calves and they can find them from a certified operation, then they know that it's been demonstrated that producer can prove they're doing the right thing. It's not just, I'm saying I'm doing it, it's that I can prove it and it's been reviewed and audited to that standard. So I think there's a lot of value to the feeding industry, to the feedlot industry with the certification, and then that they can in turn, market that through their channels, that those packing plants can take that product and market it to their consumers. I just feel it's a win-win for everybody that we can get that information transferred, because if I'm doing it, but I don't tell anybody that I'm doing the right thing or that I've gone through the certification, then that gets lost, right? It's the way to showcase it as much as we can so that we get the most value throughout the supply chain for that work that we're doing and the most benefit for everybody involved.
So Melissa, I've got a quick follow-up question for you. Like when you talk about how we can tell the story. So if you are a VBP, what sort of verbiage or words should we be looking for when we are talking about those cattle, assuming that we're a VBP Plus certified operation?
Yeah, we do have, sometimes there's confusion within what the appropriate terms are to use for describing VBP Plus cattle. And so VBP Plus cattle is actually a misnomer in itself. So we are actually certifying the operation itself. So we are auditing cow-calf operation, or we're auditing the background or the feedlot operation. We are showing that operation has systems in place that meet our criteria, that we can ensure that they meet our outcomes, so that we can say they're certified VBP Plus, which also means that they meet the standards for the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. So that means they're also CRSB certified sustainable beef operation. The certification actually applies to the operation. So when cattle are marketed, the proper terminology is to say that they're cattle from a VBP plus operation or a certified CRSB certified sustainable operation. The term, like to say they're sustainable cattle or to say they're VBP plus cattle, is something we try to be careful about, because it's actually that they come from the certified operation. We try to make sure people understand that. We do have some reference material that explains the verbiage that can be used. And so that is available on our website, our Verified Beef website that's out there. But we do see people that are, listing cattle as McDonald's certified or sustainable verified or things like that. And so some of those terms are not 100% accurate. It might get the gist of it across, but it's not technically correct. So we do try to make sure we can get consistency in the marketing terminology as much as we can.
www.verifiedbeef.ca and the direct link to some of those marketing resources in the show notes, because we have the ability to do that.
Yeah, I think Melissa brings up a very good point. I think as marketers, we have to be very careful about the verbiage, and the McDonald's example is a good one. The cattle may qualify for the McDonald's program. I think it's important to not suggest that they are something that they're not. And I think quite often in the world of cattle marketing, you hear these claims jeopardizes the integrity of what we're doing. I think it's important, and we do have a platform where we have the ability to do that. And I go through every listing that goes through our system to make sure that we're not making claims that are untrue. And Melissa, you bring up a good point there. Coming from a VBP plus operation, I don't think it's probably good practice to suggest that unless you're certain, you better know what you're talking about. So I thought that I would make that point. And I think as cattle marketers, we have a responsibility to know what we're talking about and ensure that the claims that we're making are actually true.
Absolutely. And I think that's true, and not just for VBP, but for any branded program has the same risks and watchouts. So that's a fair point. We've got people who have been tuning in, which is fantastic, from all over the country, all over Canada. And you folks are both Alberta based. So Jason, you deal with producers through your platform and sale from all parts of the countryside. So for those who may be tuning in from outside of your sort of local area, do you have any recommendations for someone who may be thinking about starting to go down the path of creating a little bit more of a deliberate marketing plan? So assuming we're sort of in this October timeframe, that they may be planning for next year. So we've got some pregnant cows, we've got a calving window that's sort of set. So can you just run down what the process is, or if there's any recommendations that you've got?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, we do pride ourselves as being Canada's leader in internet cattle marketing. We do market more commercial feeder cattle on the internet than anyone in Canada. Now, with that being said, I do have a vision of being more of a national platform. 99% of the cattle that we offer today are in the West: BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. We do, from time to time, sell some cattle in Ontario. We often sell cattle to Ontario and to Quebec. In fact, Ontario, probably the volume buyer on these bigger, earlier born calves that are trading. One limitation we have in growing and becoming a true national platform is the platform itself. It works best with load lots of cattle. It doesn't work as well with smaller groups. They have a tendency to perhaps get overlooked. But I do think that if smaller groups were being sold in areas where the buyers are used to buying them in smaller groups, I do think that the platform would work in areas that we're currently not doing business. It is working extremely well in Western Canada right now, but we are also fortunate in that we have access to big strings of cattle and we're able to put load lots together. But to answer your question in terms of marketing and having a deliberate plan, I don't think that being small totally eliminates some of the options that bigger producers have. Amongst our customers, we're seeing big, medium, large, small. We are seeing them all forward price calves right now, and we are selling some smaller groups. One thing that can happen is neighbors can get together, family can get together to put groups that are a little bit more desirable on the sale. Again, getting back to something that I said earlier, you don't have to sell your cows on October 30th if that's when you want to deliver them. You really don't. You have options. You can sell them in the spring, you can sell them in the summer. And if the market's hot, why not capitalize on that rather than be at the mercy of whatever's happening when you want to deliver them wherever it is you normally deliver them? I guess for those in Western Canada, you're probably a little bit more used to this and probably following it a little bit more closely than in Eastern Canada, simply because that's just the way that the marketing's going. But I would suggest if you're in the East or anywhere in Canada, if you have regular buyers that you deal with, if you have regular feedlots that you deal with, if you have, auction markets, dealers, those in the business that are trading cattle, talk to them. Talk to them about what their options are. And if you don't like the answer that you're receiving, maybe you got to talk to somebody else. There are lots of options. It's a very competitive business. I don't care where you are in Canada in terms of the marketing end of things. Very competitive in the auction market business, which I'm in. It's very competitive amongst the dealers, which I am one. The online marketing platforms are very competitive with one another. So as a producer, you do have some leverage there. I would exploit that leverage and talk to some people in the business. If you're in the business, you know who they are, and find out what your options are. Don't be at the mercy of what happens the day you want to deliver your calves. Don't do it. Don't get caught in that trap. As a cattle feeder, that's typically the best buying opportunity is last week of October, early week in November. And in terms of production in Canada, for obvious reasons, that's when they come and that's when you buy them because that's when they're cheap. You can deliver them then, but you don't have to sell them then. You can sell them ahead of time, and utilizing platforms like ours, like Team, you do have the ability to do that. And it's a simple matter of talking to the professionals in the business. Talk to your local auction market, talk to your local dealer and ask them about it. And again, if they're not giving you the answer that you want to hear, talk to somebody else. There's lots of people in this business that are happy to handle your cattle. That's how they make their living. And it's their job to explain your options. And it's also their job to be able to present you with those options. And if they can't do it, find somebody else.
Thanks, Jason. And what you mentioned about, separating the delivery from the purchase or the sale is something that happens in a lot of the other agricultural commodity industries very, very regularly. And it happens likely less often in the beef industry as a whole than some other commodities. The feeling from a cow-calf perspective, like you've got no control over what happens. So yeah.
I think a trap that a lot of folks fall into is getting so caught up in production that you're not thinking about marketing. And marketing is such a critical component of the whole thing. Quite often you only get one chance to do it. You only get one chance a year to do it. So if you don't get it right, you've got to wait another year to get it right. And it's tight enough in this business. I would suggest that nobody can afford to do that. There are lots of options available, and today more than ever, COVID and the drought have forced a lot of issues, but I think they've also accelerated, like Melissa said, what might have happened in 10 years has happened in a matter of months. And it's not nice to be forced into this position, but we have been. And there are some positives that come out of this. If we can get better at marketing our cattle because we were forced to, then, well, I guess that's one positive of having to deal with all the other negative stuff that we've dealt with through this. But again, there are options. You should talk to your local professional about what they are and decide what's best for you.
So Melissa, and I will encourage our listeners that if you're just joining us, you can take a zip back to episode 1, which talks about the audit process and how you can get your operation in a position to maybe take advantage of some of these, the VBP Plus brand and marketing your animals from a VBP Plus operation. So Melissa, do you have any recommendations for somebody who may be thinking about going down this path of VBP or brand added?
As producers, we need to make sure that we understand the value of our animals if we're wanting to market them the most effectively. And so, making sure that you understand that there's value in your VBP certification and there's value in age verification or in your vaccination program or breed types or whatever you have to offer, make sure you understand the value of those things and that you can market them appropriately. And with the VBP certification, for example, there are other things that, if you're looking at specific value chains, might be additional requirements to meet the needs or qualifications for that value chain. So to make sure that you understand that fully and you make sure you meet all of those requirements, if you're going to be, if you're going to go through the route of marketing, it's good also, like Jason said, you talk to the professionals, talk to your auction mart or your cattle marketers, your buyers, and talk to them too about what they see as value in the industry. So if they see that, higher demand for certain types of cattle or certain programs or vaccination, that's things that you might want to, if you're not incorporating them already, you can look at that for a longer term plan, or talk to local feed yards. And there are producers who make, they build some really good relationships with their feed yards that can be beneficial both ways, so that, the feed yard can provide feedback to producers on how their cattle are performing and what they liked about them or what maybe could be improved. And that can be a two-way street that ends up benefiting both parties. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. There's a lot of VBP feedlots in Western Canada for sure. And I think a growing number in Eastern Canada as well, that if they're looking for those calves to fill their lots, to keep them in the value chain, that's something that increases the value of your cattle if you've got those calves from a VBP plus operation. Just keep that in mind, like where the value lies on your cattle and how you can promote that and what your biggest customers are. We have a list on our website on our VBP website that has our verified feedlots, and we try to promote that. I send out an email to Western Canadian feedlots, and I guess I'm working on incorporating some Eastern ones as well, where when we have these VBP, operations that are selling cattle, that information gets straight to their inboxes saying these cattle are selling tomorrow and here's who to call for more information, so that those value chains can be connected better and the producers can see the value for that on both sides.
So do you have, I guess in closing, we're sort of running out of time here because we could probably take 7 different segments and talk about different pieces of marketing and some strategies, but do you guys have any words, advice, best practices, or any of that type of thing for anyone who's thinking of progressing further down the VBP plus path? So maybe a producer who's been trained and has gone to a few of the different training segments, but hasn't gone through the hoop of getting an audit. Melissa, do you want to start there?
Sure. I would say, well, first listen to your first podcast where you explain the audit. I think that's for people who are thinking about that step. It does help you to explain it a little if you can hear what's all entailed in going through the certification. And again, I just make sure that you understand if you're trying to meet certain value chains requirements, make sure that you understand what those are, and that you can market most effectively for those. We want to get the most value for what we're doing as producers. And if you're doing a lot of the right things, you might already meet the requirements for the program or be very close to it. And so then if it means that you can gain the certification, if it just gives you that much more credibility as a producer, even when you're marketing, it brings more buyers to your cattle, whatever it is, that can add value to you in a lot of different ways. Those reputation cattle, when you see reputation cattle selling on any platform, whether it's live through the ring or online, those cattle do bring a premium every time. And this is one way that you can demonstrate your reputation, is by going through that certification.
Jason, do you have any sort of closing comments on anyone who might be on the fence about certification through something that's value add?
Yeah, for sure. Again, I think it demonstrates good management practices. If you're thinking about it, I would get familiar with the program to find out how close you are to qualifying. You may not have to change your practices much at all to get certified. For myself as a cattle buyer, as a cattle feeder, again, it demonstrates good management practices. The world's changing quickly, and it's a program that may give you access to premiums available. It's something to me, and I've been watching it all along, and I've seen a lot of programs come and go, but this one seems legitimate to me, and it's something that could potentially give you access to programs that you might not have access to otherwise. This business is too tough, margins are too tight. to not be able to utilize a program like this that is accessible to you, that doesn't cost a lot of money, that doesn't require a ton of effort in most cases. Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? Well, we'll take it, give it a wrap there with that closing comment. Big thanks to Melissa and Jason for joining me today. And really appreciate your time today, guys.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Amy.
I'd like to thank our sponsors again, since without them, we couldn't have this fabulous show for you guys to tune into.
So thank you to the Canadian Agricultural Partnership through New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. And we will see you next month.
Catch you guys later.